Hello, welcome back. This is Liv again, and basically this video I'm going to be doing something about, well, time management and study tips. And I do have to admit it is a bit ironic that I'm doing this. If any of you who's watched my previous video where I'm pretty much very against the idea of self-help. So I'm not going to contradict myself here and try to be some self-help YouTuber and telling you what to do and what's best for you, which is why I've titled this video, well, sort of weird, atypical, not the usual tips and advice that you're going to see. Well, the reason why I wanted to make this, obviously, firstly, is to help people. And secondly, I felt like I wanted to show how there is room for giving other people advice without falling into the condescending and like the schematic trope of self-help. But definitely, as a disclaimer first, I'm not saying that you should be like me and do whatever that I'm telling you, because that'll be contrary to my own principles against self-help. What I'm doing is really providing you food for thought. And the main point is, rather than telling you what you should do, I think what the aim of this video is to give you some food for thought, but in the meantime really encourage you to guiltlessly do whatever the fuck you want with your own study and time management. Because I think what we should give is tips, not, I don't know, like principles. Anyways, let's start with time management. And I think this is definitely an over-discussed topic, whether in like self-help books or by countless like YouTubers. And there really is a lot of stressing on how to manage your time, even taught by like schools and universities, and particularly your parents, really. So there are a few key principles that are like very much circulated in this area, and I would separate that into like 4 main doctrines. So the first one is the value of deep work. So you set aside a block of time where you focus on deep work, which is like without distraction, typically without distraction with your phone or other people, and you just focus on the work at hand. And the second principle would be to plan your studies, whether it's like a checklist box or a timetable for your day or your week. Like really do plan and actually write down your plan. The third one is to give yourself a reward system, and there's like the famous like Pomodoro technique, such as like, you know, you work for 25 minutes or an hour or 50 minutes, and then you give yourself some reward to take a bit of time off, like grab coffee or scroll on your phone or, you know, like sit by the window or something. And number 4 is setting priorities. People recommend approaching the most urgent or challenging tasks when you start your day. And I think it is a good way to start and get the hardest or like the most demanding one done with, and give you a lot of motivation. Since this video is approaching from my personal point of view, I'm going to assess how well I personally live up to those 4 principles, and hopefully in the process this will give you some grain for thought, really. So firstly, number 1, deep work. I would say I am kind of horrible at it. So if you have watched any of my previous videos in detail, there have been a few points where I've mentioned that I can't read for extended periods of time, whether it's like university readings or reading for leisure. Okay, university readings I probably do it a bit better because there is this pressure that I do have to get these readings done, otherwise I can't write my essay and hand it in. So yes, that's a bit better, but in general I can't read for more than half an hour. I need to like stop and do something and walk around and shit. But I know a lot of people, they would like sit there and not move for an hour or 2. I could never do that. So this sort of inability to stay there and read for a really long time really translates into my inability to do deep work for the majority of the time, because those 2 are correlated. And also, being a humanities student, a vast majority of my work is just reading stuff. However, that being said, it doesn't mean that I never fall into sessions of deep work. Sometimes if I'm really interested in a topic, or if I just desperately had to finish this essay before the deadline, then I get into deep work. Number 2, plan. Okay, I do plan, but I probably don't plan in the most meticulous or standard or, you know, model way that is advocated by a lot of self-help books. So basically, during high school, I did mainly like weekly plans. I made like dot points of what I would do on Monday and then Tuesday and Wednesday, and I would probably adjusted it a little bit throughout the week. And for the holidays, I did like this entire list of things I wanted to get done over the holidays, but I don't really divide it by day. In university now, I don't do the weekly dot points anymore. I do more daily planning. I don't know why this shifted. Maybe because I bought a planner that goes by day, or because I felt like it's just a lot easier to keep track of my tasks when I plan day by day, and you don't have to like think about the next day's work if you don't write it down, and then before you go to bed you don't stress about it because it hasn't like come into actual physical existence yet. But I do have a vague idea of what I'm going to do each day, but I just don't like really put it in concrete until I get up in the morning that day. And then during the holidays, I still do like a checklist of what I'm going to do, but what's different now was that in high school I just did a checklist and I went through it. And the result was my completion rate was like between 60 to 80%. I actually didn't feel much guilt about it. I don't know why. I felt like it was okay because I never completed my checklist. I felt like I sort of got used to not completing it. So it's like whenever I make the list, I was expecting not to complete it. So when I don't complete it, I felt like it was fine. And I usually make the list in a way so that it's fine that I don't complete the whole thing as long as I complete like the most important parts. But like now over university holidays, I've only made holiday plans for like the Easter revision holidays and some of the summer holidays, not exactly study, but just things in general I need to get done. And I would divide it by like a weekly or on a 10-day block. And then like these like mini goals, and then I track my progress and adjust on the way. And I feel like this helped my completion rate somewhat. Of course, it's not 100%, but it's gotten up a lot. So what I learned from the readjustment process is really like flexibility is important. So you know what are the most urgent ones, and in the process of getting through your tasks, you start to realize maybe this aspect I need to do more on, this I don't need to do as much on, so you start to add and delete tasks, and I think always being flexible is important. So 3, the reward system. To be honest, I've never adopted this system. I felt like I just braked whenever I wanted to, and I don't know, I don't like setting myself specific rewards or break times, because sometimes when the time's up I don't feel like breaking, and when it's not the time I feel like breaking, I feel like I just went with my own flow. So yeah, you don't have to do that. It just personally for me, I felt more rewarded if I rewarded myself whenever I wanted to. So number 4, the priority system. I definitely do operate under this system. I would feel more right by the end of the day when I don't manage to complete all my tasks if I know that I've completed the most important ones first. However, I don't necessarily start the day with like the hardest or the most urgent task. I feel like I would start with, just like making some food, breakfast for myself, and listening to some podcasts. I usually listen to a bit of podcasts, either on current affairs or some topic of, just society or like law and philosophy that I'm interested in. And then I like to do a bit of like a 10 to 20 minutes reading of just like books for leisure if I do happen to have like more time in the morning. And then I would do like a bit of correspondence like on emails and like check texts from the night before, and just miscellaneous tasks first if the individual task like really takes less than 10 minutes, and then I will start with the most important or the hardest task of the day. So yeah, I do adopt this priority system, but not entirety, so I don't like delve into the hardest big task of the day immediately, because I felt like this easing myself in is a pretty good method. So to give a summary, I would say I've only partially lived up to the time management model, given by those time management coaches, is what I call them. And here comes to the core of the advice that I want to give, is I've shown through my own example that, yes, it's not like I'm rejecting all of their stuff as bad. So of course, they do have a lot of valid points, but what I want to say is you should take all of their stuff with a grain of salt. So obviously you should consider it and maybe like try it, and if you think it works well for you, then good for you, that's great, keep doing it. But if you find yourself unable to do what they tell you, I know a lot of people feel guilty about not being able to live up to those excellent time management models. I think this is totally unnecessary. Don't feel guilty about it. I've never felt guilty about that. Because the problem with you trying to live like those time management models and unable to is that you think this is something you should do, and that's the ideal way of managing your time, and you try to force yourself into a routine that you don't feel comfortable with. So sure, you can attempt it and maybe force yourself to stick to it for like 3 to 5 days or a week or 2. And then if you discover it makes you comfortable, then that's excellent. Keep doing it, and it boosts your productivity. But if you're someone who's like repeatedly attempted to live in this routine and repeatedly broken it, then clearly there's something wrong, right? Because something can't be suitable for everyone, so clearly this is not suitable for you. So stop trying and stop feeling guilty about not achieving it. I know people who really have to like plan ahead, and on the other end of the spectrum, there are people who procrastinate until the last minute and do stuff and get it done with equal quality. Like there's nothing wrong with either end. So I think as long as you have achieved like alright or desirable results for the task at hand, you should respect your method for getting you there. Even if you procrastinate until the last minute and then you got it done and it was good quality, you should respect how you got there, because it deserves that respect. But if you got like an undesirable result, then that is when you should go back and reflect and mend your method. So I think, yeah, how much validity your method has really depends on your result, and that's how like you evaluate your method, right? And finally, just another side note I wanted to say, a lot of parents, would tell their children like since from a young age that you finish your work first and then go play. I've actually never lived to that principle. That's kind of weird. Well, my parents didn't really care when I did my work, as long as I've done it. So kind of like actually did the opposite. So say on like weekends, I would actually like watch some TV in the morning till noon, or like go out and then like start my work in the late afternoon into the evening. And I felt like it helped me because the whole time when I'm working, I wasn't like yearning for the reward of play, like after I finish work, because I've already gotten the reward. And also, squeezing my study time towards the end of the day really helped me become more efficient, and efficiency was what really helped me through high school. And if I started my work at the beginning of the day, I would feel like I have the entire day ahead of me, and then my productivity would be so low. Like, I've tried it, and it just turned out really horrible. That being said, a lot of people, if they started work late, they would end up staying up to do work, which was something I never did. Maybe because I'm just lazy, or I really value my sleep, or my parents have taught me to really value my sleep. But when I'm really tired, or when like the clock is up and I'm just like, oh, it's my bedtime. I had such a punctual bedtime when I was in school, but that just erupted. It all like went to pieces in university, but that's a whole nother story. I was huge on punctuality, on going to bed when I was in high school. So when the time is up, no matter what I haven't done, unless it's like a major product that's due the next day, except in those emergent cases, I just put down everything and just go to bed. And I feel like giving myself that sort of time limit really boosted my efficiency. I think productivity is something that needs to be forced. It has to be forced and squeezed. If you just give yourself no time to do stuff, like, you will see your productivity like skyrocket. It's just a matter of fact. And that's how, like, you know, people squeeze 8 hours work into 3 hours because they have a deadline. So the second part of this video is about study advice. And I actually found this a lot harder to approach compared to the previous part, because everyone are in such different stages of study, and there's just so many different advice you could give to different people depending on the subject and whether you're studying at a school or university level. So this will be rather personal from my perspective of what I'm studying and what I've done. Definitely will not be applicable to a lot of people. I apologize for that. Yeah, because, you know, I can't really know how everyone in the world is studying. Firstly, if you're doing a humanities essay-based subject, like me, and regardless of whether it's like in high school level or university level, I cannot stress enough how important wide reading is. So whatever you're reading right now might feel totally irrelevant to your course, but trust me, one day it will be of use. Because I think all humanities are like one big jumble pot, and they all just like mix and mash together. For example, I've always been really into like literature and literary criticism and stuff since high school, and I do like spare reading in that area. And that's really helped me doing the aesthetics topic this term in philosophy, because I end up able to apply a lot of critical theories into, you know, analysing literature and their intentions and their value and stuff. Secondly, please read your syllabus. I think all the way up to the end of undergraduate study, you do have a syllabus for each course. So please read it. Honestly, just please read it. So in particular, like when I do revision, I do like match my own knowledge notes against the syllabus points to make sure like I'm aware of what the syllabus wants me to know and check whether I do know it. So thirdly, be selective. So you can't be expected to master everything in your course, and it's not your fault. It's just a matter of fact. So for example, for my university papers, I get to choose 3 essays out of 10. It's usually recommended that you do not study all of the topics because it will kill you. Like, I'm not kidding, it will kill you. And even in high school, so if you get this subject and you're in principle required to learn the entire syllabus, well, in practice, you don't really have to. So when I was in year 12, I did this really hard mathematics paper called Extension to Mathematics in Australia. And there was this one part about like stats probability and stuff that I just couldn't get for the life of me. I couldn't get it. Like, I really tried, I couldn't get it. And then I just chucked that part out of the window, basically. I just didn't study it and then focused on improving the other parts that I'm actually able to master with some effort. And then in the actual exam, I got like 2 questions on it, and I think one I just wrote random stuff and the other one I just like left it. And I wasn't thrown off because I was expecting not to know the probability part when it comes to the exam. Like, I've chosen to sacrifice it beforehand because I couldn't get it and I'm just done wasting my time trying to get it. So I still got a good mark, even though I just chucked that part out the window. You know, it's fine to sacrifice some small parts that you feel like you just couldn't get, even though it's part of the syllabus that you're technically expected to know. And then this has been like so oversaid, but I just want to quickly emphasize again, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, you think you're going to look really dumb asking a really dumb question in class, but you're going to look much dumber when you get a bad mark on your report. Like, I'm sorry, this sounds harsh, but it's true. Okay, the next point is probably a little controversial. Choose subjects you're good at in high school, but choose subjects that interest you in university. So I think this is controversial because I've been told by all my high school teachers to do what I'm interested in. But the unfortunate truth is, in high school, you don't really get to delve too deeply into the subject, and hence my misconception of what economics is about and why I applied, and that's a whole different story in my previous video. So even if you chose that subject you like, you may not really be able to explore your interest as much as you want. It's quite like shallow, the extent that you delve into it. On the other hand, if you do something you're good at and then you get a good mark, then it helps in the long run to be able to pursue something that you really enjoy doing in university, for instance. In university, at least for UK degrees, you're expected to specialize very deeply in the field that you're studying. So in this case, if you don't have sufficient interest, you will be so miserable for like at least 3 years of university life. So don't choose something that you're not interested in. Another thing, please get enough sleep, particularly before exams. If you have the choice of staying up to revise, like a bit extra because you want to feel safe, or going to bed, choose the latter. Like, I don't need to give you scientific studies on how the brain function is impaired if people don't sleep enough. Just please believe that. Lastly, there is like this weird little exam trick that might work for some people depending on your system of examination. So a lot of exams that, do like questions involving mathematical calculations to give follow-up mistake marks. So let's say you have question 7A, B, C, and then you got like this wrong answer for A, but the answer for A is required in the calculation for B. You put the wrong answer in, and then your entire method for B is all right, and then you get the wrong answer for B, but it's because of your wrong answer for A. It's like the entire process of calculation itself is fine. You wouldn't get the mark for A, but you'll get the mark for B. That's a follow-up mistake. I actually took advantage of that in high school. There was like this one last question where I got like this bizarre answer for part A. I knew it was wrong, but I still put it in and did like some really just fancy, weird calculation and got a different answer for B, which I knew was wrong because my answer in A was already wrong. But I got the follow-up mark for B, and I was the only person, it turned out, in the entire cohort that got that mark, which I was really surprised because, that question, like the A part was so hard that no one got it. Like everyone either got a wrong answer and then they got it wrong because it looks so weird, and I know my answer looked really weird as well, or like they just gave up halfway. But despite the fact that I know I got a really dodgy, weird answer, I still plugged it into part B and I got the mark. Even though, like, obviously this one mark didn't, like, make me top the cohort or anything, but I was proud that I did that little trick. So in conclusion, I hope that some of my advice have been helpful, whether on time management or study. And again, I wish to emphasize a disclaimer that I'm not telling you to live like me, be like how I manage my time while studying, but it's just a grain of salt that you could rest on and, think about. If anyone has any questions on what I've said, or if you want me to expand on some area of just any questions about how I do stuff in general, please leave it in the comments. And also, because I've been like reading comments about my sound, so I got a new mic, and I am curious to hear some of your opinions on how the sound's going.